Welcome! We are the Fortman Foundation, and our mission is to identify and assist racial/ethnic minorities with becoming well-adjusted and fully contributing members of the workforce through financial literacy, community outreach, and entrepreneurship. Our vision is to provide a spiritual anchor for young adults. Throughout this series, you will have a 5-minute video summary of each of our Gear Up articles that will touch on different topics pertaining to the young adults, which include financial freedom, spiritual disciplines, mental health, relationships, and eternal perspectives. Now, let's dive right into the article.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
So today we're going to be covering the celebration of recovery and mental health. So we're going to be looking at some items about mental health and recovery. But what I'm going to do before we start, I'm going to read out the Serenity Prayer. This is usually covered during Celebrate Recovery. And then I'll also talk about the small group guidelines, and then we'll get into the study for today. So let's just go ahead and say the prayer of serenity. I'll read it out. You guys just listen in. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, the wisdom to know the difference, living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking, as Jesus did, the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen. So I'm going to read out some of the small group guidelines. These are guidelines usually when you're talking about mental health and stuff because of confidentiality and the different things that people share. So the first thing is keep your sharing focused on your own thoughts or feelings, not your spouse's, not someone you're dating, not your family member hurt, hang-ups, just your own. You want to focus on yourself because that would benefit you in recovery as well as the ones around you. Stick more to I statements, me statements, not you or we statements. Limit your sharing to 3 to 5 minutes so everybody has an opportunity to share. And make sure that one person does not dominate the group sharing time. There's no crosstalk. Crosstalk is when two people engage in conversation, excluding all others. Each person is free to express his or her feelings without interruptions. Crosstalk is also making distracting comments and questions while someone is sharing. This includes speaking to another member of the group while someone is sharing, or responding to what someone has shared during his or her time of sharing. We are here to support one another, not fix one another. So this keeps us focused on our own issues. We do not give advice or solve someone's problems in our time of sharing, or offer book referrals or counselor referrals. We're not licensed counselors, psychologists, therapists, nor our group members. Celebrate Recovery groups are not designed for this. It's up to the participants to include outside counseling to their program when they're ready. Anonymity and confidentiality are basic requirements. What is shared in the group stays in the group. The only exception is when someone threatens to injure themselves or others. We are not to share information with our spouses, family, co-workers. This also means not discussing what is shared with the group among group members. This is called gossip. Please be advised, if anyone threatens to hurt themselves or others, the small group leader has a responsibility to report to a Celebrate Recovery ministry leader. Offensive language has no place in a Christ-centered recovery group. Therefore, we ask that you please watch your language. The main issue here is that the Lord's name is not used inappropriately. We also avoid using graphic descriptions. If anyone feels uncomfortable with how explicitly a speaker is sharing, then we might indicate so by simply raising our hands and bringing it to their attention. Emphasize at the close of the meeting that the small group sharing guidelines stay intact, and even when you fellowship after the meeting. So before we start, what is it that you heard about the Serenity Prayer or the small group guidelines? Kind of like, what does that make you feel or sense as we get ready to talk about mental health and recovery and the celebration that comes with it?
So when I think about the serenity prayer, I feel as if it's like, in regards to mental health, it's a good, I would say, like balance, where it's like you're not leaning too far one way or too far the other. You're not being delusional. You're accepting things for as they are, and you're finding complacency and happiness inside of that.
For me, I would say when you read through the guidelines, it's just important to have that community where you can share freely and not feel judged or not feel, you're being talked over, or like, again, it's not a space where people are trying to fix one another, but just to kind of be a soundboard or like be able to release some things in those groups. So that's a huge point that I took from the guidelines.
Do you have something to say, Ray? Can you say one sentence in your own word?
It's like literally the same thing.
Okay, just go ahead and say it too.
I think it's important from the guidelines to have community and not feel like you need to be fixed, but just to have other people there to support you.
Wonderful. So what is Celebrate Recovery? Have you guys even heard about Celebrate Recovery before? What do you know about Celebrate Recovery? So what do you know? Tell me what you know about Celebrate Recovery.
So what I know from Celebrate Recovery, having gone to a few sessions, is that we go through a series of books and kind of go through different topics that are themed based off of, whether you're dealing with healing, and then from there we move on to another topic. So that's my experience with Celebrate Recovery, and I definitely want to encourage everyone who's watching and is kind of curious about it to join. And of course, as you are going to talk through what it is in depth, I would definitely say it's great, and it's of course not therapy exactly, but it's definitely, if you want to save money and maybe check things out and check with yourself about certain things that you can talk through and feelings and emotions and things like that. So it's been a good experience so far.
I've never been to Celebrate Recovery. I only know Celebrate Recovery because when we were younger, when my mom would go to Celebrate Recovery, she would bring us for like the kids daycare, basically. And I think like getting older, I know that it's like a support group essentially for people that are just going through different things in life. And I also know there's a serenity prayer because we were taught that when we were very young as well.
Okay, so Celebrate Recovery is a step-by-step program that helps people overcome their hurts, hang-up, and habits. It helps them overcome it through the love and power of Jesus Christ. So it's not a psychological thing. It's not a Eastern thing. It's a Christ-centered recovery program that focuses on the power of Jesus, what he did on this cross, and his ability to help us overcome. It integrates biblical principles to help people deal with their life hurts. So the first thing that we're going to focus on now is looking at the 3 H's: hurts, hang-ups, and habits. So hurts, hang-up, and habits are anything from the past or present that gets in the way of having a fruitful relationship with Christ and with other people. So they sometimes undermine and diminish our potential, despite the assurances that we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. So right now we're just going to look at what hurts are, what hang-ups are, and what habits are. Hurts are like events, people, places from the past or present that left a negative impact on you. They tend to occasionally reappear as unhealed wounds, despite all efforts that you make to ignore or forget them. So hurts can come from abusive relationships, heartbreaks, betrayal, injustice, abandonment, divorce. And there's other things too that can also cause hurts. Can you guys think of any other issues that can cause hurts in people's lives? Death, yes. Change. I think change can also, Sickness. I'm thinking sickness too.
Expectations,
yes. All right, right, so we'll move on to hang-ups. You've probably heard the saying that action elicits reactions. Hang-ups, in a simple description, are negative reaction to actions. They're either the inappropriate and negative attitudes that we either use to cope with adversity or to respond to situations in life. They can manifest as a character defect or negative behavior patterns such as anger, instant gratification, jealousy, temper, pride, poor impulsive decisions, depression. What else can you think of as a hang-up? Gossip?
Yeah, okay, I can see it.
I feel like gossip is a good one because it's like people like to rebound to talk to somebody else about certain things, or it's unnecessary. And then I'll say when you talk about like impulsive tendencies, I would say another hang-up could be like shopping a lot, or like they say retail therapy and things like that. So I would say that's probably a hang-up. You can double check with that, but I'll say that's one.
What about withdrawal?
Yeah.
The way you respond
You don't
to
feel
negative, yeah, so you just withdraw from everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, isolation.
I would say also projection.
Project, yes.
Yeah.
All right, habits. There are good habits and bad habits. However, we're going to focus on bad habits for this study. They are repetitive actions and behaviors, most often associated with addictions that draw us further away from walking with Christ. So they're indulgences that often lead to a solitary life against a life of fellowship with the Holy Spirit. So some things that we know as habits are like substance abuse, pornography, sexual promiscuity, food addiction, overspending. Can you guys think about other habits? Gambling? Gambling just came to my mind. Yeah, gambling. Mhm.
Did you say overeating?
What about codependency? Even including spiritual codependency. Yeah, I think it's a habit too.
Binge watching?
I feel as if it could be a good habit, but once you take it to an extreme level, so it could be anything, but once it consumes you too much, then
Once it doesn't play its role that
Yeah,
it
once
needs
it-
to play.
yeah.
All right, so we're going to look at the 12 steps to recovery. These are the 12 actions that we take according to biblical principles on the road to recovery. The first step is that we have to admit that we're powerless over our addictions, compulsion, and life, and our life is unmanageable. Romans 7:18. We are in denial and we are powerless. So a lot of times the first step is that we need to admit that we're in denial. A lot of times people don't admit that they have this habit, or they have this hurt, or they have this hang up. They try to cover it up. Do you guys have any practical examples of what you've experienced with people being in denial, or where you clearly see that this person is powerless, but they don't want to admit that they can't fix this on their own?
I would say in high school when we would play sports, I would have teammates where we would try to challenge them to do better, because everyone except for them has acknowledged that they've made a mistake and that they need to get better, but they stay in denial because they don't want to have to face the reality that I made a mistake and I've let other people down, so they'd rather stay in denial that I couldn't have possibly done that.
Alright, so we'll look at step 2. We need to believe that a power greater than us could restore us to sanity. Philippians 2:13. Jesus ends up giving us hope and restores us to sanity. Does anybody have any practical examples of when you found hope in Jesus, or where Jesus has helped to restore you to sanity? I'll go. So there was a time I was dealing with a lot, financial meltdown. I had to, taking care of the youngest. I mean, you love your kids, but they can be a lot of work. So, and sometimes when you have too many things going on at the same time, it becomes overwhelming. You have to provide financially, you got to be there emotionally. Too many things were going on, and I was a Christian. I've been a Christian for a long time, but it was just a burden, just weighing me down. when I started going to Celebrate Recovery and I started learning about the principles, I had hope that Jesus is like, it's one of those things where it's like, here, get to the back of the boat and let Jesus take over the boat. So it kind of gave me hope that Jesus knows exactly what he's doing and he's able to navigate and get me out of the situation. So that's an example for me. Step 3, we need to sincerely decide to commit our life and will to Christ's care and control. So it's not just about knowing that Jesus is our higher power. It's not just about coming out of denial. We need to commit our lives, just like in John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him will not perish, but have everlasting life. Even though Jesus has given his life, he has died, God has given his Son, you need to make that commitment to accept him and turn your life and will to Christ's care and control. So one, we must turn and we must take action. Have you guys noticed either in your life or in other people's life where you can tell that this person just doesn't want, what they say, Jesus take the wheel? You can clearly tell that this person, the struggle they're having is that they're not wanting to give Jesus the will to take over. They've not made that conscious decision. They talk about it and stuff, but they don't take any action.
Yeah, I would say for me, in one of my friendships, I definitely, I had to point out to this person that, I've been sensing that she has maybe a bad relationship when it comes to control. Like, she wants to always be in control of certain situations. And I'm like, if life happens and certain things, you're not going to be able to have control. And so I feel like that kind of crept into her being more anxious about certain things in life. And I'm just like, if you don't deal with one thing, it's going to morph into another thing. So I've definitely seen her not willing to relinquish some sense of control and power, and let God take the wheel. So I'm working with that friendship and trying to get her as much help as possible. So I would say that's a tangible example of, not being able to let go of control.
Okay. And then now we look at step 4. We make a fearless moral inventory of ourselves, and we need a sponsor in order to take a moral inventory and spiritual inventory. So moral inventory is really looking back at your life and look at where somebody has hurt you, how they hurt you, where you hurt others, how you hurt them, and how you plan to make amends or to fix the relationship. Have we ever done something like that, where we go and we take the time to really reflect back on our important relationships and where somebody could have hurt us, how they hurt us, whether we communicated it or we're carrying it? Same thing, where we hurt others, how we hurt them, how it could have impacted them, then the issue of making amends. Have we ever thought about relationships in that way?
I have thought about one of my friendships that way, where we've been friends for 5, 6. It's been a while. So over the course of our friendship, obviously things happen. You have disagreements, and sometimes you drift apart, and then you come back together. So at the beginning of this year, I decided that I was going to be more intentional with this friendship, and before I reached out to her, I had to do a moral inventory of our relationship over the preceding years to see what actually went wrong and how we can move forward from there.
Good, thank you for sharing. We admit, step 5, we admit to God, to ourselves, and to another person the exact nature of our wrongs, James 5:16. So we confess and we admit our wrongs. I want to emphasize here, it says admit to God, to ourselves, and to another person. Do you know that sometimes the denial that we're in is not with others, is with ourselves? We're not able to tell ourselves the truth. Hey, you is an alcoholic. Or you're overeating. Or you have an anger problem. Like, you find all kinds of excuses. If that person didn't talk to me that way, or but we're not able to admit to ourselves. And sometimes we don't want to admit to God or to others. But it's also very important that when you are admitting, make sure that you're admitting to people that are safe. people who you know are not going to use it against you. Like we said, we're not here to fix one another. Jesus Christ is the only one that does it. Where people are not going to judge you and look at you differently simply because you came clean with some of the things that you're struggling with. Step 6, we need to be ready to have God remove our character defects. So that means we need to be ready. Jesus is always committed to us making a change. In the Bible, it says that we increase from glory to glory. So he's ready to help us work on our character defects. And step 7, we humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings, and then we gain victory. Remember, this is not something that we're doing on our own. It's something that we are humble before God and allow Jesus Christ through the Holy Spirit to remove our shortcomings. Step 8, we make a list of all persons we have hurt and be willing to make amends to them all. So we make amends and we forgive. How do you feel about making amends? Let's talk about that for a second.
I feel like it's definitely something that I put more into practice when we were talking about, making that moral inventory of ourselves. And I feel like this kind of ties perfectly into being one who wants to make amends, especially when you go back and assess and see that, okay, I was the actual person who did that wrong with a comment or whatever that cut the person in the wrong way. So I would definitely say it's something that I'm open to and will continue to do, because I feel like we're all imperfect. We're going to continue making mistakes and everything, but it's just being able to bounce back in a more positive way, which is, implementing everything that was shared and making amends and understanding that you can be wrong, but just fix it immediately and don't let it fester too long.
I think one important thing to remember when you're making the amends is that the other person doesn't owe you anything. I feel like when we go to make amends, we probably think, oh, because I said sorry, we should be friends again. They don't owe you anything. You did them wrong. So it's mainly for your own conscience and for them to understand that you're actually sorry, but just because you said sorry doesn't mean that you can go back to how it was.
So basically what you're saying is that forgiveness and reconciliation are two different things. Forgiveness is about the past, reconciliation is about the future, and with that, there has to be a character or behavior change in order for the relationship to continue. All right, so step 9, we make amends to such people whenever possible, except when it will either harm them or others. So we extend grace. So it's not always possible to make amends. Like if the person is dead, well, you can't make amends, or if the person has moved on, And then sometimes in trying to make amends, you can end up causing more hurt. If the person has already moved on or stuff, just because you want to feel free, you go and you start opening up all those old wounds that they've already dealt with. And then there's something that I learned about making living amends. Living amends are like when I offended Ure, but I might not be able to make amends to Ure. But going forward, when I'm relating with Hezi or when I'm relating with Tammy, I make sure that in my relationships, those same patterns of behavior that caused my relationship to be ruined in the first place, that I'm not doing it again. So it's called living amends, because you can't make it when the person is no longer there, but there are people who are alive. It's almost like a paying it forward. Well, you can't make amends with somebody who's not available, but you can do it with somebody who's available. In step 10, and we continue to take personal inventory when we're wrong, admit it. And so we get to crossroads, make sure that it's not a one-time thing. It's something that you do consciously. That's why you do your Bible study daily, prayer, fasting. All of those things are daily walks, because even if you confess everything today, next week you go do something, So it's just being in that attitude of humility, that the minute, we're not sinless, we're blameless. That attitude of, hey, whenever I do something wrong, I am able to promptly admit it and move on. And then step 11, we seek through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will and the power to carry it out. So it's possible that we're able to relapse, but we show gratitude and make sure that in our praying to God and talking to God, we understand what His will is for us, and also that He gives us the power to carry it out. Then the final step is step 12. We testify to others these principles in our affairs. So we give, we say yes, and we go ahead, because the whole goal is about making disciples. Once, Jesus Christ told Peter, the enemy has asked to sift you as wheat, but I've prayed for you after you've been strengthened so that you can turn around and strengthen others. So step 12 is testifying to others what God has done in your life and be able to help them to also get unstuck. So those are the 12 steps. There are 24 lessons in Celebrate Recovery, and each of them has an acrostic, when you say acrostic, okay. I'm always mixing it up. So what we're going to go through now is we're going to go through the 24 acrostics. If there's any that really stand out to you, I'll pause after I do a couple. We can kind of talk about it as we move on. So the first lesson in the session is denial. So denial. D, we disable our feelings. E, we lose energy. N, denial negates growth. I, denial isolates us from God. A, denial alienates us from our relationship. L, denial lengthens the pain. So disables feelings, energy loss, negates growth, isolates us from God, alienates us from our relationship, lengthens our pain. So that's why the first thing is that we need to realize that we're not God, and we need to come out of denial and step into God's grace. Does anybody have anything they want to talk about with the acrostics? Okay, moving on. The next one is powerless. So we're going to look at the words for powerless. P is that you have pride. O, you're focusing on the only if only this had happened, if only that had happened. W, you worry. E, you escape rather than dealing with the issue. You escape by self-medicating. R, there's resentment. There's loneliness. L, E, there's emptiness. There's selfishness. And there's separation. So you're powerless. You have to realize that you are powerless to control your tendency to do the wrong thing. Do any of the meanings from powerless resonate with anybody where you want to talk about it? Okay. So we'll look at the next one, hope. H stands for you depend on your higher power. O, you're open to change. P, Jesus gives you the power to change. And E, you should expect to change. So we need to believe that the power higher than ourselves could restore us. Higher power, openness to change, power to change, expect to change. Any comments?
I do like the E for hope, expect to change, because it can feel like sometimes it's just, all right, well, God, change my situation, and you kind of just sit there like, I don't really believe it. It's not going to happen. You just kind of sit there and wallow in your pride, but it takes a lot, and it's a different mental state to fully expect that you're going to change and for it to actually happen.
All right, so now we're going to look at sanity. Sanity is that there's strength, there's acceptance, there's new life, there's integrity, there's trust, and then there's your higher power. Strength, acceptance, new life, integrity, trust, higher power. What's the difference between sanity and insanity?
I'm not sure.
There's a popular saying, insanity is doing
The same thing over and over and expecting the same result.
thing,
But different result.
Different result, yes. Okay, so the next one is turn. Lesson 5 is turn. You need to trust, you need to understand, you need to repent, and you need to start living the new life. When we make a decision to turn our life and will over to the care of God, Turning it over to him means that we trust him. You can't turn your life over to somebody you don't trust. You need to understand how God works and how he created the world to be. You need to repent, and you need to start walking in the new life that God has for you. The next lesson is action. Action means to accept. You accept Jesus Christ. You commit your life and will to his care. You turn it over. Understand it's only the beginning. Take it one day at a time, and then just take the next step. Does anybody have any of the words in action that resonate with you?
Yeah, I would say for T, taking it one day at a time. I feel like a lot of times when we want to, or we have a mental framework, okay, I want to change, I want to commit to a new life. I feel like a lot of times we overwhelm ourselves with X, Y, and Z of things that we can change, which is positive, but then it becomes easily detrimental when we think that we're going to go take that first step and trying to fix every single thing, but just take that one day and then address one thing. Like I have a saying, or like I heard a saying, that try your best to be 1% better every day. Not in your own strength though, because we're learning that it's the power of the Holy Spirit within us. So you and the Holy Spirit be 1% better today. So long as we're in this flesh, right? So
Lesson 7 is a sponsor. There's no acronym for sponsor, but it just talks about the importance of having a sponsor. A sponsor is like somebody who has gone through this journey and is now able to help you. Like somebody that you can trust. They've been through it. They understand. They're safe. They understand the principles of recovery. They understand Christ, how Christ works, and they're able to sponsor you. What's the difference between a sponsor and an accountability partner? What do you think is the difference? Because you do need to have an accountability partner, but you also need to have a sponsor. What's the difference? When you think about the word sponsor, accountability partner in this journey, what do you think the difference is between the two?
To me, the way I view it is like, for example, like a accountability partner would be like a classmate, but the sponsor would be the teacher. Is the way I view it.
Yeah. Or something like accountability partner is like your peer, and a sponsor is like your superior, somebody that is more advanced than you are. Lesson 8, moral. It means that you should make time to do a searching inventory of yourself. You need to be open. You need to rely on God. You need to analyze what you've written down and make sure that you maintain your lists. All right. Lesson 8, the next one is the inventory. It says that we need to make a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. So when you do the inventory sheet, what you want to do is to write down who's the person, who is it that offended you. Sometimes it could be God. You know, why did you allow my mom to die? Or why did you allow this to happen? Or why did you so who is the person that caused you harm? What is the cause? What was it that they did? What impact, what effect did it have on you? What was the damage that happened? And then what part did you play in it? So when you're taking an inventory, you want to make sure that you have these things. The person, the cause, the effect, the damage, and your part. Okay?
question.
Sure.
How can God cause you harm or pain or like you were saying when we want to go and take that personal inventory and make a list? You said even God can be a part of that list. I'm just
Expectations. If you've been trying to believe that, if you pray to God, he'll answer all prayers, and you're praying that this person will be healed and they die, or you're praying to God that you don't get fired from this job, you've heard that, people are going to be fired, boom, you get fired. Because of your expectation and not really knowing how God works and operates, you get offended. So you pick offense of God that he was not there for you. Like, why am I serving you if I'm going to go? Sometimes people go through persecution and difficult times, and sometimes it's also because of what they've been taught. To name it and claim it. If you give your life to Jesus Christ, you're always going to be happy. Nobody talks about the suffering and the persecution, sometimes the difficult times. So people have that expectation. And so when that expectation is not being met, or you're in a marriage and now you're going through a divorce, you could end up blaming God. And so you need to write it down, because sometimes that's what makes people fall away from the faith, is because they don't have the courage to openly say, I'm mad at God, I'm offended. But as you talk about it, God knows you're mad. I mean, there are several people who have been mad at God. Job was mad, David was. But when you know that this is a perfect person, and the whole goal in this exchange is that he's going to change you, you're free to be yourself. You don't have to pretend that he already knows that you're mad at him.
Yeah.
So it's okay for him to be on the list if that's really the person that you have an issue with. 10, we take a spiritual inventory. The spiritual inventory is we look at our relationship with others. We look at the priorities in our lives. We look at our attitudes and our integrity. And we now make an inventory to figure out where we are going wrong and what changes need to be made. Spiritual inventory part 2, which is lesson 11. Now you look at your mind, your body, your family, your church, and what role, it's played in all of these areas by you or by others. And just come clean about what's really going on. Then lesson 12 is you confess. So let's look at so confess does have an acrostic. So confess is C, you confess your shortcomings, you obey God's direction, no more guilt, there is therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. You face the truth, it eases the pain, you stop blaming other people, and you start accepting God. Does anybody have anything they want to share about confess? Confess your shortcomings, obey God, no more guilt, face the truth, ease the pain, stop the blame, start accepting God. Okay, the next lesson is admit. We admit to ourselves, to God, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Why do you think it's important that we should admit our wrongs?
I feel like it frees you if you admit those things. Because it's like a saying, like, if you don't forgive somebody, you become the prisoner or something like that. I'm not, quoting verbatim, but I feel like it's definitely freeing. But when you said, admitting sort of outrightly those specific things that, were your shortcomings or your wrongdoing towards somebody else, I think that's important. So that I feel like a lot of things can be kind of glazed over if you're not diving into the specific things that, okay, this is what I did wrong, X, Y, and Z. So that I feel like it kind of is a two-way thing. You're more introspective in your wrongdoing, you've assessed and you reanalyze and done all those things, and then your part in your due diligence, and then the other person is able to understand, like, well, you actually took some time to be intentional and think about some of those things. So that's why I like that point.
All right, and then the next lesson 14 is R, ready. And ready, the acrostic is you release control. Easy does it, which we already talked about, taking it one day at a time. Accept the change that is happening. Do replace your character defects and yield to the growth that the Holy Spirit is bringing in your life. Lesson 15, victory. The acrostic for victory is you voluntarily submit. You identify your character defects. You change your mind. You turn over your character defects to God. Take it one day at a time. Understand that recovery is a process and you must choose to change. Lesson 16, we make amends. So making amends, the acrostic is you admit the hurt and the harm. You make a list. You encourage one another. You're not doing it for them. You're doing it for yourself. Do it at the right time and start living the promises of God. Then lesson 17 is forgiveness. We need to evaluate all our relationships and offer forgiveness to those who have hurt us, and also make harms for the amends that we've done to others. So the daily prayer says, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. So that's the lesson 17 on forgiveness. Accept God's forgiveness, forgive others, forgive yourself. Okay? And then grace, we look at the acronym for grace. G is God's gift. R, you receive it by faith. A, you accept God's love. C, understand that Christ paid the price. And E, it's an everlasting gift that you have received. And then crossroads is that you reserve daily time with God to continue to pray, read the Bible, study, all that, because you continue to take inventory. It's not something that you do once and, oh, it's over. It's something that you have to keep doing daily. As long as you live in this fallen world, you are always going to be impacted by hurts, hang-up, and habits. 20 daily inventory. We want you to know that inventory is ongoing inventory. It's daily and it's periodic. So there's some that you do maybe every quarter, some you do daily. P, you do it periodically just to make sure that you are keeping up with your recovery process. And then understand that sometimes you may relapse, that just because you've done all this work and something new may happen and knock you off your feet, it's okay to start over. So the acrostic for relapse is you reserve a daily quiet time, evaluate what has gone on, listen to Jesus, make sure you have a alone and quiet time, plug into God's power, slow down, and enjoy your growth. So does anybody have anything that they want to share on relapse? Reserve a daily quiet time, evaluate everything that's going on, listen to Jesus, have a alone and quiet time, plug into God's power, slow down, and enjoy your growth.
For the last E, enjoy your growth. It can be hard sometimes to think about. Like when you're a child, you just want to grow up so fast that you don't really take the time to enjoy growing up. But then you get older and you start to realize, wow, I've kind of given up a lot of good free time, a lot of good time because I was so much in a rush to grow up. Now you're grown up and you're like, oh, I should have just waited. I should have taken my time. So
Yeah.
I think it's kind of the same for this, where you guys have to enjoy the growth, where you don't want to rush it and you don't want to miss out on anything in between.
All right, lesson 22, gratitude. You need to be thankful to God. You want to be thankful to others. You want to be thankful for your recovery. And you want to be thankful to your church. Okay? Lesson 23, it says that you should give. The acrostic here for give is God first. I becomes we. Then we have victory shared. And you also give examples of the actions, the things that you have been doing to have this spiritual experience that you have. And then the last one, lesson 24, is yes, you yield yourself to God, an example of what is important, and serve others as Jesus Christ did. So those are the 24 lessons that we go through in Celebrate Recovery. As we get ready to wind down, we're now going to look at how we tie Celebrate Recovery to all the other celebrations. So we're going to go through this exercise. I want all of us to participate in this. How does Celebrate Recovery or mental health impact relationships? What is one way that celebration of recovery and mental health impacts relationships?
Well, I can say if you're not in a good mental state, you'll pick bad relationships or continue to be around bad relationships, which will only then affect your mental health even more, become a continuous cycle.
Good, I like that a lot.
Yep, and like that saying, misery loves company. So I feel like a lot of people are kind of drawn to their own problems. So like toxicity and relationships that are like that. So I would say definitely mental health, like not being at a great mental state, definitely impacts your relationships and the ones you choose. So I would definitely say that's bad, but definitely get some help.
All right, how does celebration of recovery and mental health tie to money? It's a celebration of financial freedom.
When it comes to mental health and money, if you're not in the right mental health, or if you don't have the right views about money, you're going to try to use money to fill a void in your life that's never going to be filled.
I also think that proper mental health can keep you from impulsive decisions, especially when it comes to money, when you're in a vulnerable state and you're not really thinking you can do things that you could do.
Where you could have made a goal under financial freedom. We talked about financial freedom, about building assets, where instead of continuing to build assets, you spend because you think that spending will make you feel better when you just needed to go and do the work of recovery. So, yeah.
You also mentioned about how, like, you know, some people, something happens and they go squander it right away. So it's also just looking back on, like, maybe how you've seen your parents make money and that example that you were brought up with. Because I think a lot of things tie back to those early subconscious teachings, or how we just experience our parents use money or make money. So that's a good point.
Yeah, because they said here that our feelings about money often come from childhood, the way our parents handled money. So that's also, if you don't deal with your thoughts about money and recovery, it also impacts your ability to get the financial freedom. Good. Celebration of recovery, mental health. How does that impact eternal perspectives? How do the two tie together?
This is one that I was, wanted to dive into a little bit more deeper as far as my own personal study time of this lesson. But I think I recall you mentioning that it's about, being able to live a life of just giving and pouring out, as far as, like, whether it's having money enough to pour into the lives of those who are less fortunate, disciple making process, whether it's investing in a company that can provide tracts or different resources to people that are not necessarily a part of the Christian community or necessarily a part of the body yet. So I would say that that's one thing that I definitely kept in mind, as far as, like, being one who's after souls, and souls are eternal, because what really matters is how many lives are won for Christ at the end of the day. So,
and you have to think about what is eternal perspectives, is that there's life after here. We are going to be judged for the decisions that we made. Jesus Christ died so that we have a relationship with God. And not only that, he wants us to now take everything that he's done in us and go do it for others. So mental health impacts internal perspectives, because if you're not whole, how can you help to make others whole or show them the path? Like, if you're depressed, being in denial about your depression, how are you going to help somebody else who is depressed? And that's part of discipleship, being able to talk to somebody. If you're not working on your own issues and relying on Jesus, your higher power, how are you able to go talk to somebody else that, hey, Jesus is able to take the wheel and he will restore you to sanity? Which, by saving that soul and by talking to that soul and leading them to Christ, you have saved the soul from hell, and you're helping them to live a fruitful life here and in the beyond. A lot of times, do you really think that in heaven it's going to be like, hey, because daddy never loved me, so I was drinking and I was having sex, or what? Yeah, I understand, come to heaven. Well, at the end of the day, you still need to address your relationship with Christ at the end of the day, whether or not somebody did something to you or you did something to somebody else. So mental health has a lot to do with eternal perspectives, because God wants us to live a fruitful life here on earth and also in the thereafter. And having good mental health helps us on how we relate to God first and also to others. And the final one is mental health and spiritual disciplines. How do you think mental health relates with spiritual disciplines?
Well, it's hard to have discipline if your mental health isn't in order. So it's kind of like
doing the work of the moral inventory. Yes.
Yeah, like if you don't have one without the other, it's just one step forward and then two steps backwards.
Yes, I agree. All right, so that's it for the celebration of mental health. So let's check out, what did everybody, if you had to say one thing to somebody about the celebration of mental health, what would you say to them? One key thing that you benefited from this discussion.
I would say for me, it's important to be open to the idea of change and believe that it can actually happen for you.
And for me, I would say, moving forward, what I would definitely want to make more practical in my life is just the idea of coming clean. And I think a lot of times, whether it's through prayer or my personal reflection times, I feel like I kind of glance around different things or like dance around them as opposed to just verbally admitting some of my wrongs to God first, and then people that I feel more safe with, and then also plugging into various groups like we mentioned to be able to just be a better person. So, and definitely moving forward as one to make living amends. So.
I think it's important to take moral inventory of your situations and yourself, just to so that you can know yourself better and have better relationships and live a better life.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for coming today, and I look forward to our next session. Bye.
That you enjoyed this summary and that you can apply everything that you learned from here today. Check us out at www.thefortmanfoundation.org for access to all of our Gear Up articles. If you are benefiting from all of our resources on here, feel free to share with a friend, a coworker, or a family member. It is very important to understand that the topics covered in all of our modules should be applied in the context of relationships, eternal perspectives, spiritual disciplines, financial freedom, and mental health. Finally, we want to leave you with these 5 important questions that will change your life. Do you have a spiritual belief? To you, who is Jesus? Do you think there is a heaven and a hell? If you die right now, where would you go? If what you believe were not true, would you want to know? Join the movement now and take charge of your life. We hope you have an awesome day. See you next time.